Hello and wickety wickety wick back to the 90s. So we're going to go to our third part now. And before we was talking about movies that had actors like Christian Slater and Tom Hanks, where we did a bunch of their movies. From here on out, it's just going to be randomized movies without any specific organization, just throwing them out there. Again, the rules are pretty simple. I think these movies are by and large mostly forgotten. Again, not everybody would have forgot about them. That's obvious. So again, if you say like, "Oh, I remember that movie," good. I'm glad you did, but it doesn't mean that everybody did. A lot of us maybe forgot it. I did ask some people, like a small sample size, like 12 to 13 people. Said movies with actors with these actor in the 90s, and if they didn't reply with one of the movies that I thought was forgotten, I put that in the forgotten thing. And some of these are up to debate, and some of them I'm on the fence with. Like, is it really truly a forgotten movie or not? So again, it's just a personal list and just my ideas and a few replies. It has to have had some kind of like at least a decent sized promotion for it as well. It couldn't be one of those straight to VHS movies, or straight to DVD, because I don't think that's fair. A lot of these movies that I'm talking about did get some kind of promotion, some of them more than others. So let's carry on. Have you ever had a real asshole boss? Well, after you watch this movie, you're going to think your boss is the best person in the world compared to Swimming with Sharks with Kevin Spacey. Say what you like about Kevin Spacey in his personal life, but he is a fantastic actor, and it truly shines in this movie. He plays the asshole boss so well in this. It's worth just watching for his one-liners. I mean, he makes the movie. Again, this one didn't get big promotion, but I think it was well known enough in the 90s that it could be considered a forgotten movie. It's dark, it's twisted, it's funny, but it's definitely dark and twisted. So watch it, especially if you don't like your boss, it make you appreciate your boss a little bit more. Going on to the next one, and this is one of those on the fence ones because it does have a huge cult following, and that's Office Space. And like I said, a lot of people do know this movie and love this movie. It's a real cult classic, but I still think it's kind of a forgotten one. I think it's based on the book, something about Milton. Anyway, so basically, one day, this office worker who's just sick and tired of his normal humdrum life goes to see a therapist who hypnotizes him, saying, "Look, when you're feeling like this, just imagine you're on like a beach on a vacation." Unfortunately, the therapist dies halfway through this, and he's permanently stuck in this mode. But it changes his life forever. Everything is now more relaxed. He's enjoying his life. He finally asked a girl out who he's been wanting to for a long time, played by young Jennifer Aniston in this. And they find out that the company's going to be taken over and they're going to lose their job. So him and some of his friends at the company decide to do kind of like a Superman 2 theme where they embezzle some money from the company. And it's all about them trying to get away with it. But this movie is mostly about the characters in it, and there's some really memorable characters and some great scenes, especially when they beat the hell out of the office supplies and with the music. That is one of my favorite scenes. Okay, going on to the next one, and for me, this may be the most forgotten Tarantino movie. Like before, I was talking about Tarantino, but this is also him directing, and that's Jackie Brown. I think this one got swept underneath the rugs because of all his other movies around the time. And unlike his other movies, this one is a lot less violent. And I feel like a lot of Tarantino movies, they're very well remembered for some of the specific violent scenes, like Reservoir Dogs, where they're cutting off the ear, for example, or Kill Bill when Uma Thurman's taking out the people. This movie has a fantastic soundtrack. In fact, Tarantino movies normally always have a good soundtrack, but for me, this is one of the best ones, if not the best one. You've got Pam Grier in it, who's fantastic. You've also got Michael Keaton in it, and I love anything Michael Keaton does. He's a real treasure. So that's why I think it's kind of like a forgotten movie in many ways. I highly recommend it. I love the story, I love the acting, and of course, there's a host of very good actors in it, as you would expect from a Tarantino movie. All right, so going on to another movie, which feels like it should be a Tarantino movie, but it's not. Actually, my sister, shout out to Stace, what? You reminded me of this one, and that's Get Shorty. So basically, Chili Palmer, he's a mob person on the East Coast. He does something against another mobster and has to move off to the West Coast to Hollywood area, to California. And there he sells his rights kind of like to his life, and he's working on the movie production, wanting to make his own movie. And of course, the past comes up to get with him, and he has to find a way around it. Now, what makes this movie so great is A, is very good and very well scripted, and B, the performances that you get from John Travolta, that you get from Rene Russo, Gene Hackman, and Danny DeVito. So it has an all-star cast, and it's just wonderfully done. It's not overtly violent. It's just a fun movie, and I highly recommend it. All right, so we're going to move on to the next one. And this one I was on the fence on again because I'm not sure how much of a promotion it got, but it did get a cinema release, so I'm including it. Toy Soldiers. Now, basically what happens is a terrorist group takes over like a private school for boys, and these boys have to basically retaliate and take out the terrorists. So think of it kind of like Rushmore meets Die Hard, and Rushmore's another one I might put in as kind of a forgotten movie as well. But it has a young Sean Astin and a younger Will Wheaton, so two actors I really like. It's not the best movie, but it's not a bad movie as well. It's worth a watch. It's not one of those you can watch many times, but it's worth watching at least once. All right, so next we're going to go to a sci-fi movie, and the 90s had some really good sci-fi movies. A lot of them were remembered, but I think Gattaca is one of those that people forget about. You have Ethan Hawke, you have Jude Law, you have Uma Thurman, you got Blair Underwood, you got Xander Berkeley in it, so great cast and a damn fine movie. Basically, in the future, there's a hierarchical system. If you've got a strong genetic line, you're going to get the upper echelon jobs, and if your genetic markers are less than desirable, you get the lower end jobs. And so basically, what happens is Jude Law and Ethan Hawke, they kind of switch places. So Ethan Hawke, who has an inferior genetic line and markers, end up being moved over to the top level, the echelons of society. And it's about him, outsmarting the customs and living in that kind of world. It's really well crafted, it's well scripted, and it's one of those movies to show that, if you have good actors and a good script, you don't need a whole lot of action, you don't need a whole lot of effects. So it's definitely worth mentioning. I say this is a forgotten movie because during an interview, I think it was with Andy Richter, Ethan Hawke also said, it's Jude Law even said that, look, this was one of my favorite movies I've ever made, but I think it's the most forgotten movie I ever made. And he even said that Ethan Hawke says the same thing. So if the two stars in the movie are pretty much agreeing that this is a forgotten movie, I think that should go in. All right, we're just going to have two more very quickly, and then we'll do another episode. I don't want to make these too long for you. Imagine an overachieving high school student who wants to run for school presidency, but the teacher's had enough of this kiss-ass student, so gets another student to try and run his election. This has Matthew Broderick, Reese Witherspoon, and I think the first movie of Chris Klein. Any idea what this movie is? A lot of people wouldn't. A lot of people forgot it. Election is hilarious. It's a very dark kind of comedy, and part of it is just seeing like how far they'll go to stab each other in the back just to win this election. So again, it's one of those movies that's worth watching once, but it doesn't have a great repeat value unless you haven't watched it for a long time. But a lot of stuff going on there is very fun, and it's definitely worth watching. Okay, the last one here is going to be another sci-fi one, because I talked about Gattaca. I feel I have to put this one in, and this is one of my favorite movies in the 90s, hands down, and one of my favorite sci-fi movies. And that's why I think it's really kind of overlooked and quite forgotten, especially with all the other sci-fi movies that came out about the time, like The Matrix and things like that. And that's Dark City. And so basically what happens is the character John Murdoch wakes up alone in a hotel wanted for murder. He has no memories of what's happened and why he's done it or how he did it. He still thinks he hadn't. But along the way, he finds out there's a group of people called the Strangers who can manipulate time and reality. Basically, they put the world to sleep at night and then change everything so they can change people's backgrounds, the personalities, the life stories, even buildings and things like that, how things look. So basically, that's what they did to Murdoch. They changed his background to him being a murderer, even though he never did it. So he has to find a way to get out of the city and stop these strangers and find answers to all of it. It's a really good thriller movie, and you got a great cast with Keith Sutherland, Rufus Sewell, William Hurt, and Richard O'Brien. The last one you might know from Rocky Horror Picture Show. The movie's very dark, and when I say dark, I'm not talking about like dark comedy. I mean, it's literally shot at nighttime, so a lot of the scenes are very dark. But this really leads to an excellent lighting. I forget who did the lighting for this movie, but they did a fantastic job. You know, some movies that are meant to be dark are just too dark and you can't see much. And what's one of the biggest things you want for a movie? To be able to see it. This one's just dark enough to give really good atmosphere, but they put enough light in where it doesn't look artificial and it really helps build up the whole movie and you can see what's going on. So I highly, highly, highly recommend this movie on so many levels. Again, fantastic script, really well lit. It's such an underrated movie. So that's going to be it today. Just quickly, before I finish, after this, I'm going to do another little one episode special talking about thrillers in the 90s and the good thrillers in the 90s. Not necessarily forgotten, just good thrillers in the 90s. Because my friend Sam, shout out to Sam, talked about this, being like, there were many good thrillers in the 90s. And again, a lot of them are kind of forgotten, some of them aren't. But I want to know what happened to the thriller genre, because it feels like after the 90s, it really, really, really went downhill. And today is, in many ways, just somewhat disappeared. So we'll talk about that some other time. All right, have a good day, and we'll speak to you later.